In this video segment, we examine competitive advantage, and the way that we determine whether or not competitive advantage exists is by using this framework called the resource-based view and the VRIO framework. This is a theory refined and forwarded by Professor Jay Barney out of Ohio State University. In examining whether or not you have competitive advantage, and you certainly do want to have a competitive advantage to be successful, you first have to start with identifying that which you do especially well, or at least better than your competitors. And so you have to find a distinctive competence, which is something valuable that you would do better than your competitor. Hopefully there's something there in the organization, and you want to identify that item and leverage it for long-term gains. If you look at the iPod, and this is an older iPod down at the bottom of your screen, versus its early rival, the Microsoft Zune, the iPod was obviously more successful in the long run because it was continuously innovative, had the click wheel which the Zune did not have, and continued to morph into new and different types of models. So the R&D and the innovativeness was certainly a distinctive competence. Okay, and so that's what gives you a competitive capability that rivals cannot match. And I think Microsoft kind of gave up on this because they just couldn't keep up with the innovativeness and the change that Apple was undergoing in this very important marketplace. This distinctive competence that you hope to identify becomes the basis for sustained competitive advantage, and we introduce the word sustained here because what you really want for a successful organization is competitive advantage that lasts over time. Some examples, in the automobile industry, Toyota and really more recently even Nissan is noted for having a lower cost structure than all other automobile manufacturers, which is to say they outsource quite a bit, but they're very efficient, they're very lean in the automobiles they produce. It's not to say that they sell for lower prices than anybody else, but they certainly have a lower cost structure, which makes them, according to the business model, a more profitable organization than one with a higher cost structure. And of course, Starbucks is pretty easy to see that Starbucks in the coffee shop arena has been innovating coffee drinks, commanding price premiums for exotic coffee drinks, and the store ambiance is something that no other competitor in the coffee store market has been able to imitate. So these are certainly things they do better than competitors. Now, the resource-based view takes a look at two different items: resources and capabilities. Resources are probably the most important in the context of the matter at hand, and that resources can be either tangible or intangible. That's how we dichotomize them. And of course, tangible items are things you can taste, touch, feel, smell, such as factories, products they introduce. You could re-engineer, you could duplicate a factory, of course. But there's also the intangible assets that an organization might have, like reputation. You can't really see that. You can't duplicate it because you really don't know how exactly a firm got there with respect to reputation, if indeed it's a grand reputation. And so these resources are used to find and implement strategies. Capabilities, which is the second part of this resource-based view, just simply says, does the organization have resources that allow it to exploit, in the resource-based view way, that which it has for long-term gain? In other words, is the organization marketing-wise, and does it have relationships with buyers, sellers, etc.? Does it have the ability to forward those rare or valuable, tangible or intangible resources? And we'll do some practical examples of these so it makes sense. Now, the resource-based view uses this acronym, and we'll explain exactly what that means. And we're also going to use the De Beers Company, which you probably know has a world's quasi-monopoly on diamonds. It's forwardly integrated, backwardly integrated. They own mining rights to many diamond mines in the world, mostly Africa. And so they're a very valuable company, in so much as that diamonds are valuable, and there's not that many places you can get them other than De Beers as a source. So, De Beers certainly is very valuable in that it has resources like diamond mines, diamond mine rights, etc. Rare, diamonds are certainly rare, That's our R part of the acronym. The I part is the imitable. Costly to imitate, probably impossible. If they have a monopoly on the diamond business forward and backward in the mines, it would be very, very difficult, or if not impossible, to imitate them. And so then therefore, if they have these three resources, and finally, if they are organized to take advantage of that which they have, in other words, build a business model and create a platform to deliver a product profitably, then they can expect to enjoy a long-term competitive advantage and long-term superior profits over time. And that's, again, theoretically where we want to get our organizations to. So applying this framework according to the acronym that we have at hand, we start with a molecule over here, and I actually think that's ibuprofen when it was first introduced back in the day. And so if your molecule, for example, um, or your marketing or your reputation is subject to each of these questions and it can answer yes, then you can determine whether or not you have a competitive advantage. And each of these questions, when you apply it to your resource or your matter at hand, your marketing, your molecule, whatever it might be, is it better than your competitors? And if the answer is yes, then you're probably in pretty good shape. And if it's not, you want to find a way to get there. So we start by applying this tool, and we start with the V for value, and we look at Walmart, who of course is very, very successful. Their low cost structure is what allows them to charge lower prices in many, but not all cases. And I just pick a firm with a reputation which allows it to charge much more than normal for a pair of blue jeans or a T-shirt, etc. So the theoretical part of this value is that does the resource available, does the resource that's available let the firm exploit a opportunity or neutralize a threat? And in the case of Walmart, both is true. Its low cost structure allows it to reach price conscious consumers if they want to, and they do. But at the same time, it also, during the recession or double dip recession, whichever you want to consider the state of the economy that we're currently in, and now this is late 2011 as I speak, you know, the threat of the economy is pulling more and more people into lower priced stores such as Walmart. So they're continuing to do very, very well. In the case of Hollister's reputation, uh, it allows them to charge more per pair of blue jeans or per jacket. So it's allowing it to charge more per item. That's an increase in revenues. So that's also something that helps the business model in terms of bottom line profits. Hollister, for example, $99 for their fall offerings of jackets to teenagers or younger college students. They can get away with that. Target cannot. Their skinny jeans are exceptionally expensive against some of the other competitors, indirect competitors, for which you could buy blue jeans. So we skip to the second part of the acronym, which is that of rarity. And that was really the problem that we think Detroit had over the first part of this millennium, from 2000 to 2009 or 2000 to 2010. If you look at mid-size sedans, which are noted here, the Focus, the Aveo, the Sebring, if you think about it, there's really very little to differentiate these automobiles from each other. They look very similar. They have very similar creature comforts, and GM Pontiac, I used to have a picture up here on this, and when I taught this in prior semesters, if you think about it, GM Pontiac thought about it quite a bit, and they couldn't find a way to get to rarity or differentiation. And as you probably know, less than 12 months ago, GM Pontiac just pulled their line completely off the market. They no longer exist, which probably had something to do with the value of or the issue of rarity. They just couldn't really differentiate themselves and didn't think that it would be profitable going forward to try to do so. So, the problem is here, if your resource is not rare, and it really wasn't for, Detroit for 10, if not 20 years, then what we call perfect competition sets in. And then there's no competitive advantage. In fact, what happened is that these brands or these automobile companies were offering interest-free financing for 6 years, which is a direct hit to the organization in terms of profits because they're eating the time value of money. Uh, Moreover, they're offering, $1, 2, $3,000 cash back per automobile sold. That comes off their bottom line too. That's not a very profitable way to run business. So that's what happens when perfect competition sets in, and that happens when you have a product that's not necessarily rare in comparison to some of the others. So you have to be rare enough or differentiated enough so that perfect competition doesn't set in and you don't have this problem. On the other hand, if there are only a few other firms that have the same product that you have, then you could be successful. Powerade, is outsold by Gatorade 4-1 at least. Powerade is still a successful profit-making brand of Coca-Cola because it's able to differentiate itself somewhat, and there's only really one other major player in that market. So there are cases where you can be rare and perfect competition does not set in if you don't have a lot of competitors. And Powerade really only has one, and that's Gatorade. So applying that which we know so far about a organization having an asset that's valuable and rare, the model offerings of Chrysler, really were not valuable over a period of time. They just didn't have that much value in the eyes of the consumer, and that puts them at a competitive disadvantage. And of course, there was the financial woes and government bailout of Chrysler several years ago. And one of the many reasons they had trouble was that their product offerings just lacked value in the eyes of American and even global consumers. If you take a look at an organization that we've not talked about yet, but we'll talk about more in a moment, is that of Sonic Restaurant. Sonic Restaurant, as you may know, is a smaller fast food chain, well, by comparison to Subway and McDonald's, to be sure. But they offer, curbside service, some menu differentiation from, well, certainly from McDonald's. So they're valuable in so much as that they're drive-in restaurants, but they're not rare in the sense that they're the only fast food restaurant around. In fact, they're outnumbered probably 100-1. But nevertheless, if they at least have something of value, and Sonic has, maybe in their menu offerings or their curbside service, which some people really value, then you can say that this firm can expect to be on par competitively. They should be able to make some relatively good money, not especially high, but they should do okay. You'll remember our talk about the Razor scooter in a previous module, where in the first 3 years it was valuable, people wanted it, it was rare, no one else had it, and there is our competitive advantage, at least temporarily. Okay, we're going to take this a step further by now going into the question of imitability, and we're going to talk about this in the context of Louis Vuitton, which by ranking in a fairly recent article in Business Week, which ranks best global brands, the brand value assigned to Louis Vuitton is about $18 billion, which is exceptional. They can charge a lot for their wares, are highly differentiated, very hard to imitate. In fact, very, very hard to imitate because of this reputation. Again, that's intangible. You can't really see it. You can't get a handle on it. You don't understand completely how they got it. And, it probably would be very prohibitive to go after building a brand of similar value. So there's a number of organizations that sell, various purses, maybe through Target or department stores for $20 a piece, and they have no sights whatsoever on selling in this upper end market, and indeed it's upper end. One of the product offerings they have for the fall of 2011 are purses. I don't know the name of this, $4,200, which I think is pretty expensive for a purse. In addition, the intangibleness of the resources are more costly to imitate. It's hard to see. It's costly to imitate. That's for sure. Deloitte, the brand name of that in the accounting area is would be very, very costly to imitate. And Harley Davidson's the same way. They can charge more per motorcycle or even t-shirt than other motorcycle manufacturers just because, you can't really see how its reputation is driven. So looking a little bit more at imitability, and we use our Razor scooter friends one more time, is that if there are high costs of imitation, like for example in the case of a patent for a molecule, and in fact a patent is not, it can't be imitated for 17 to 20 years, then you can enjoy a sustained competitive advantage for a short period of time, like this $100 Razor scooter. However, the competitive advantage only exists until somebody comes out with a substitute. Amazon.com, of late is offering similar models to this old Razor scooter for $30. Walmart probably even less than that. But you can bet that if a firm has a competitive advantage and it can be imitated, that others will jump into the market, try to imitate it, take market share, and make money themselves. Razor scooters, of course, we know were a big hit and made some big bucks for several years, and that's gone by the wayside since then. So applying that which we've learned now by adding the imitability into this equation, if a firm's resources are valuable and rare, which we looked at before, like the Razor scooter, then they can expect a short-term competitive advantage. They'll do well in the short run until perfect competition sets in, or imitators jump in, and they're going to lower the price. They're not going to increase it. But if you have a resource such as the brand, the molecule, the reputation of the two best-selling drugs in the world, and I think Lipitor's patent's about to run out, but if they can say yes to being valuable, rare, costly to imitate, yeah, probably impossible right now, then these firms who, Pfizer and Bristol Myers Squibb, can expect to enjoy a sustained competitive advantage or long term, but if and only if they're organized properly. Now, by organized meaning is the infrastructure and marketing, etc., human resources behind the company solid, and certainly in Pfizer and Bristol Myers they certainly are. And so I spend very little time on this organization part. Apple is organized in such a way to support that which they sell. So is 3M. So if their control mechanisms and structure are aligned to support the product, they should do well. Reporting structures, management control, etc. If all of these together can prop up and support a firm's valuable rareness and non-imitability of a resource, then they should be able to take care of a sustained competitive advantage and take advantage of that. So let's put everything together that we think we know about competitive advantage in terms of this framework, and what are the economic implications of them. In the case of Kmart, I wonder aloud, what is valuable about Kmart when they compete in the Target and Walmart arenas? I don't think anything. Target is differentiated. Target is perception of a little higher quality, a little differentiated product line, cleaner, whiter aisles in the store. Walmart is a little bit different in that they're, more no frills, but the perception of lower price. What does Kmart have to offer in the context of those two? And I can't see anything of value yet, which would put competitively Kmart at a disadvantage, and their economic implications would be that they would have below normal returns, and indeed Kmart is still under bankruptcy protection. We go back to Sonic having some value because they have a differentiated product line with curbside takeout, eat in the car, menu items that are somewhat differentiated. You could expect a company like this at least to be on par competitively to other smaller fast food eateries, and therefore you could expect economically they'll do okay. Okay, going back one last time to our friends the scooter, they are going to have a temporary advantage over competitors, or a temporary advantage over no one, since no one competed against them the first 3 years, and they're going to do well in the short term. And this class is really about getting to the long term. How can we make this work for a long time? Valuable, the brand, yes. Rare, certainly. McDonald's, more stores than anyone else. Costly to imitate, probably impossible, because this is one of the top brands in the world. They've made recent big push into the coffee market, and therefore that coffee market brought them the breakfast market, which is the highest growth part of fast food. So McDonald's has enjoyed all three parts of this acronym which they could answer yes to, which would give them sustained long-term competitive advantage, and then economically they should sustain or long-term above normal profits. And indeed, McDonald's stock price has done better than most ever in the Dow 30 over many, many years, regardless of this up and downness we have in our economy and in our stock market.